Rise of Kingdoms just released an official platform where players can trade characters with one another for real world money. So today I'm going to give you guys my honest thoughts and opinions on this character trading platform and why I think it's actually really quite bad for the future of Rise of Kingdoms. And then later in the video we're going to dig a little bit deeper and discover why this platform is actually even worse than it looks at first glance. And I'm not being hyperbolic. There's some big red flags here that people really need to know before they participate. Before we jump in, there's a few things we have to touch on. First of all, this video is not sponsored, but I do hope that the developers of Rise of Kingdoms see this video as constructive criticism. I want what's best for the future of Rise of Kingdoms, and I don't think that this platform is it. The second thing we have to touch on is that this video is for educational purposes only, and that is it. I am not endorsing or co-signing or promoting this platform, and the reason that I say that is because I tried to address this already in my most recent video, and the video actually got taken down by YouTube's automated system. This is the email that I got from YouTube. It says that it looks like my video didn't follow community guidelines, and at the bottom it says, we think your content didn't follow our harmful and dangerous policy. So when we dig a little bit deeper, this is the specific policy that YouTube told me that I violated in my video covering this topic. It says content that promotes illegal activities isn't allowed on YouTube. This includes offering or selling services that attempt to gain unauthorized access to a secure system via hacking or phishing. Clearly this was a mistake. Clearly my video is not promoting illegal or hacking activity. I appealed this decision and YouTube immediately declined my appeal. They doubled down and said that my video did violate whatever this policy is. And honestly, I think it's kind of poetic, right? I think that this update and this platform is actually quite bad for the game. And the irony here is that YouTube literally flags it as a phishing and hacking scam just because I talked about it and linked to it in the description. I mean, you can draw your own conclusions about that if you want, but like, it's just, man, it's just so bad, right? Like, I mean, what else could I say? Like, it's just, if your latest game update is being flagged for hacking or phishing scams, maybe it's time to reconsider. With all that out of the way, let's dive in here. Wand Trade is now live. Start trading characters in just a few simple steps. Wand Trade is the only official character trading platform. The character data available for trading is sourced directly from the game, ensuring authenticity and reliability. What you see is what you get. Only characters under the seller's account are traded. The system securely transfers the character directly to the buyer's account, eliminating any risk of retrieval. And this is why it's a little bit bizarre that they chose the words trading characters, right? Clearly you're not trading characters. It's just the seller's character goes to the buyer. So it's a transaction, not a trade. You're trading the character for real money. And by the way, this is for the United States of America. Okay. This was previously something that was available in, I believe, the Chinese servers. Now it's available for the USA. Anyway, the entire trading process is monitored by the system with transparent pricing and efficient procedures. Step one, you have to log in here first to Wand Trade. Then you have to verify your age. And I believe you have to be at least 18 or older to use this platform. I'm not entirely sure, so don't quote me on that, but then you can go ahead and select a character for sale. And as you can see here, this platform will show you what the character is all about. It'll tell you what kingdom they're in, if it can immigrate or not, what KVK they did, what level the city hall is, how much power, SVIP level, or whatever the VIP level might be, and then the kill points. Okay. Now, realistically, I would like to think that accounts that get traded here would have their kill points reset, but I wouldn't bank on that, which is I mean, that's like a whole other cause for concern with regards to this, because good luck for kingdom management to figure out if a player's actually good or not, or if the count was traded, right? Like, have fun figuring that out. But anyway, here you can see what commanders the character has and which, if they're expertise or not, I presume. And then the seller can go ahead and choose a sale price. So here you can see this character at 290 million power is selling the account for $1,000. There's a platform fee, a limited time 15%, otherwise 20% platform fee, and a bank fee. Now, the seller actually pays these fees. Okay, it's not the buyer, it is the seller. This will cut into your profits as a seller, so keep that in mind. Here you can see the price breakdown. This is the account selling price. This is what the buyer pays. Then the seller pays the $150 and the $3. So this is the price that the seller walks away with. They get $846 for the character that they have traded on this platform. Again, trading is quite the choice of it. It is objectively not trading. If we're like, can we just be honest with ourselves. This is objectively not, just say selling. This is a selling platform. Email verification. Here you have to verify your email with the platform. Then you have to go through a security verification process. And this is where things start to get really sketchy. We're going to talk about this a little bit more later in the video, but the verification info requires that you put in your phone number, your address, zip code, city, state, country, or region, and you have to submit a valid government issued document and a selfie. And you have to consent to Jumio collecting and processing this personal information. We're going to talk more about Jumio later because this is a huge red flag. And then here you can see the types of ID that you can upload, so your identity card, driver's license, passport, visa. Then you can see that they take a face scan to verify that you are a real person. Now here's a very important thing, okay? This is not simply a picture, this is a face scan. Now I don't know exactly what they use for this. A lot of times, like for example, Face ID on the iPhone uses a 3D dot matrix, so they actually get a 3D scan of your face. I don't actually know if this uses the Face ID feature. I suspect that it doesn't, but it does actually scan your face for liveliness. It's not just a photograph. It checks to see, like, are you blinking? Are you moving? Like, are you alive? Are you a real human being, right? So it's more than just a quick snapshot of your actual face. Then you submit all this information to verify your identity. You select a payment method for where the money is going to go. Then you wait for the security process to go through, and then you could see your actual accounts listed up on the WonTrade platform. Okay, now there are a couple of different phases here, and here are the rules. First of all, there's a 3-day review period when you first list your account. During this time, the seller can still log in with the character, but needs to ensure that the character continues to meet the listing requirements. So you can't list your account with 200 million power and then log in and zero the account. That's not going to work. You're not going to be able to trade the account at that point. Then there is a 2-day preview phase. The seller can no longer log in, but you can remove the character listing or use the edit function to adjust the price. If you delist the character, then there's a 7-day cooldown, so you can't relist for 7 days, so keep that in mind. After the preview phase, the character enters a 30-day sales phase where the seller can no longer log into the character. Same thing, you can edit it or you can remove it from sale. Same 7-day cooldown period. During the period, buyers can view and purchase the character. When a buyer places an order, the character is locked. The final character details will be shown on the payment page for confirmation before completing payment. 1 hour before a character goes on sale, pricing changes via the edit function will not be allowed. Okay, then there is a 15 business day settlement phase, and at the end of this phase, payment will be automatically transferred to the seller's bound bank account. So this platform serves as a middleman here, and that is why there is a platform fee. Now I will say 15 or 20% seems like a very high platform fee. I'm going to be honest, this seems really expensive. I've never heard of it costing this much to do some sort of transaction like this. Okay, so that's just, I'm going to throw my 2 cents out there, but that's what WonTrade effectively is. It takes the character from your account and it transfers it to another player's or the buyer's account. Okay, so technically you never have to give anybody your email, you never have to give anybody your password. All that login information, all that is just, it's done on the back end. The character is literally just moved over to a new account. You as the seller can never get that character back unless, I guess, maybe you buy it back later down the line. I have no idea, but all in all, this is an official way to spend real money on a character in the game, which is kind of shocking because for the longest time this was against TOS. So let's talk about the one good thing about this system, okay, and that is that this will reduce the number of people who get scammed when trying to buy or sell or trade their characters. Okay, if you ever have tried to do this, a lot of people use Facebook, they use Reddit or some other marketplace or a Discord, right? Most people use Discords or Facebook, and like sometimes you get scammed, right? And so this is basically just ROK stepping in and saying, hey, here's an official platform, and this will reduce the amount of times and reduce the scamming that goes on in this scene. That is the single good thing about this platform, right? Because as you guys know, account buying and selling has been around for a long time. It will always be around, and doing it this way is just safer for those involved. Okay, so that is that. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the cons for an official platform or marketplace for buying and selling characters. First of all, the existence of this platform is essentially Rise of Kingdoms co-signing the buying and selling of accounts. They're saying, hey, as long as you do it through our platform, we have greenlit this process. You are allowed to do this, and that is that. And this is the biggest problem with this platform, and that is because buying and selling accounts completely undermines all of the progression systems leading up to endgame. So getting your city hall from 1 to 25, getting your units from tier 1 to tier 5, all of that progression, getting your arrows of resistance, getting your books of covenant, everything that you do before kvk 1, throughout kvk 1 and 2, all of those progression systems that you participate in and sometimes spend money on, all of that has just been devalued, because now you can just skip all of that. You don't have to do any of that. If you are a paying customer, you can simply skip all of that, and this simultaneously devalues any personal achievement that you could feel for your progress in Rise of Kingdoms. If you've ever felt good about getting tier 5 units, well, why? At this point, there's no reason to feel good about that, because you actually took the long way. You took the less efficient way. You grinded for it, whereas there's an official platform where you can just skip all of that. In fact, you're kind of an idiot for going through all of that early game progression, because you just wasted months and months of your time. Why would you do that when you could have just gone to work, made money, and just simply skipped all of it by buying an account? And this is especially true for players who recently hit City Hall 25 and players who recently hit tier 5 units, especially if you spent money to do that. If you recently spent money to get tier 5 units, I kind of feel like Rise of Kingdoms just spit in your face, because they took your money and then offered a platform where you can just skip all of the stuff you paid for. You could have instead paid to skip all of that. You understand? Why would you pay for City of Hope or for Fountain of Wisdom when you can just buy an account that's already at endgame, right? Like, this is a $385 bundle for a one-time purchase, or you could spend $1,000 on an account that already has tier 5 units. Like, hello? What? With all of these bundles, anyone who's ever bought these bundles recently, you just got, I'm sorry, like, Rise of Kingdoms just disrespected you. That's actually what just happened, and it's kind of, that would rub me the wrong way. If I was a brand new player who recently bought things like Fountain of Wisdom for tier 5 units, I would feel absolutely disgusted by this new platform's introduction, because everything in the early game is now optional as long as you're willing to spend money. And it makes it really hard for content creators like myself now, right? Because if I want to update my beginner's guide, let's say in 2026, I want to update my beginner's guide, well, okay, what is it going to be? Like, play the game for 2 weeks, decide if you like it, and then if you do, just buy an endgame account? It becomes really hard for me to recommend new players grind through months of progression and spending all this money potentially to get to endgame, when I know in the back of my head, why don't you just skip all of that and buy an account, right? Like, it feels so weird to have the early game progression just be completely diminished, and the personal achievement there can be completely devalued to pennies on the dollar, right? Like, what's the point in even having an early game to begin with? And you know, I keep touching on personal achievement, right? And I think that this is one of the things where Rise of Kingdoms is a game that is developed in, I think it's mainly in Singapore and in China. This game comes from the East, and I know that there's a different culture around gaming in other countries, especially Eastern versus Western thought when it comes to these types of things. And traditionally what happens is that those of us in the West feel more personally attached to our own progression. We feel, and I'm not speaking for everybody, right, but in general, and the people that I've talked to, there's more of a sense of pride in knowing that, you know, my account is my account. Everything that this account has accomplished has been me. I have done that, right? These are things that I have done by myself, and you can feel good about those accomplishments. And from what I have heard, the Eastern thought on this is a bit different, right? Games and accounts can be seen as more of a collaborative project between multiple people, and that is, from what I understand, more commonplace. And I think this is why there's such a disconnect here when it comes to this platform existing in the United States versus the developers, right? I think the developers don't really understand how big the downsides are to completely devaluing any sense of personal progression in the game, right? And again, I feel like I'm repeating myself here, but like there's actually no reason to spend money to get to tier 5 anymore. You just buy an account. It's really that simple. It's cheaper, it's faster, you don't have to waste any time. Just buy an account. And anybody who hasn't done that recently is choosing the harder way for no reason. There's no valor there, there's no honor there. Like there's nothing impressive anymore about getting to tier 5, which is really sad in my opinion. And I think that is, again, comes down to a differences in culture here. I think that it kind of really misses the mark. But beyond that, okay, let's say that you're not on board with my argument that there's any sense of competitive integrity or personal achievement. Let's say that you completely disagree with that. Let's say that there's never been any personal achievement, there's never been any competitive integrity. Let's say that it's never been a source of accomplishment to getting to end game all on your own, right? Like let's say that you completely disagree with me on that. Okay, let's talk about this from a business perspective. Games like Rise of Kingdoms rely on, and the developers know this, so this is why it's so confusing why they would do this. Games like Rise of Kingdoms rely on long-term player engagement and investment. This is why Crystal Tech is something that you have to repurchase every single season, right? They know this. Everybody knows this. This is a game where everyone, you know, there's the sunk cost fallacy. One of the reasons why it's so hard for Rise of Kingdoms players to move to another game is because they've already been so heavily invested into the game. Okay, so if you introduce a platform where players can just spend money to trade an endgame character to their account, well, players who've bought an account are less engaged in the game. They haven't played the game as long. They're not as invested in the game as somebody who's been playing and progressing for months and months or years at a time. So players who are less invested in the game will enjoy the game for a shorter duration of time. You understand? There's less sunk cost, there's less time invested, there's less money invested into the game, and they will play the game for a shorter duration of time. So even if, you know, you don't buy the argument that, you know, accounts should be something to be proud of, well, the most likely outcome of this update is an increase in player churn rate. Newer players who participate in this account trading system will probably play the game for a shorter duration of time. I mean, I'm sure there's a psychologist at Lilith that probably knows this. Okay, I'm sure they pay people to do this type of thing. And so for me, if I'm looking at the longevity of Rise of Kingdoms, well, anything that increases player churn rate is something that should be thrown in the garbage, because that's like the opposite of what you want if you want the game to last a long time, right? What you want is people to get in and really dig their teeth in and really grind it and feel invested in the game and progress for a longer period of time, even if that progression is slow. It's more meaningful that way, instead of just starting the game 2 weeks in, you've already got a max Season of Conquest account. That's like booting up Grand Theft Auto and just inputting a code for all the cheats, right? Like, how long do you play Grand Theft Auto if you cheat the entire time? I mean, from my experience, it's not very long, right? Beyond that though, here's another really big problem with this marketplace, and that is that this marketplace or platform provides a massive advantage to new players who actually do have a decent amount of money to spend in the game, and it's simultaneously a marketplace that completely locks free-to-play players out. Free-to-play players cannot participate in the won trade system because they are, by definition, free to play. They are not spending money on the game. And when you introduce a mechanic or a system or a marketplace into the game that free-to-play players can't even participate in even a little bit, that's really bad for the future of the game, because free-to-play players are a majority of the game, right? So you are locking a majority of your players out of participating in this system that allows you to skip the early game in Rise of Kingdoms. In other words, free-to-play players are the peasants. They have no choice but to grind their account for months, getting all the way up to tier 5 units, maybe even a year or more. To get to tier 5, they have to do it the hard way. They have to do it the long way, the grindy way, whereas other players can instantly just spend money and skip all of that, right? And if I were a free-to-play player starting today, I would just simply not participate in a game that does that, right? Like, ew, why would I do that? That makes absolutely no sense. And I know that the counter argument to that is that it's always been the case that whales have been able to spend money to speed up their progress, right? I understand that, but to me, there's a big distinction between having to spend money on your own account and actually level up the city hall and actually accumulate those commanders and actually set those talent points and actually do all of the work, compared to a one-time purchase and you actually just skip all of that, right? It's not that you're paying to progress through it, you're literally just skipping from point A to point C. So to me, there is a fundamental difference between the pay to win through value bundles versus the pay to win to literally skip KVK 1, 2, and 3 and just go right to Season of Conquest with multiple expertise commanders and all of this equipment that's already fully iconic. It's to me, it is a fundamental difference because all of those choices were made by somebody else. You didn't choose to craft this. You didn't choose to set the talent points on this Ragnar. You didn't do any of that. She's crawling on my desk as I'm recording this video. I think she wants to give you her 2 cents. What do you think, Tiger? The emptiest head ever. Not a single thought going on between those eyes, huh? I know. I think she just said like the video. I'm pretty sure that's what she just whispered. Anyway, hopefully that explains why I feel like there is in fact a distinction between spending money on certain bundles and progressing your own account compared to an instant skip right to the end game with commanders, with equipment, with armaments, with everything. And like, look, I know that the argument is that account buying and selling has always existed, and so there's always this saying, if you can't beat them, join them, right? Especially since this platform ideally is going to protect the customer. It's going to protect the player from getting scammed. But from my perspective, this feels more like sort of a we give up. It's sort of a lazy solution to combating account buying and selling. And let's be abundantly clear here, okay? Players who buy and sell accounts make up probably 5 to 10% of the entire player base. Okay, so the progression systems of the game shouldn't be compromised and devalued just to focus on this tiny sliver of the community that does, like, a handful of people who got scammed on Facebook doesn't justify compromising the entire early game and risking and jeopardizing the idea that free-to-play players are just not going to want to participate in the early game whatsoever. And in my opinion, this feels like a canary in a coal mine. If you guys have never heard the saying canary in a coal mine, this is an idiom that is used to describe something that gives an early warning of danger or failure in a way that in the past a canary taken into a mine would die if the air was not safe to breathe, warning people working there. So coal miners would bring canaries down, and if the canary would die in the coal mine or it would fly out of the coal mine, then the miners know that there is something poisonous in the air that they can't detect that is really bad for them, and that's how that they would know. It would be an early warning sign of danger or failure. And this account trading platform to me is a canary in the coal mine for Rise of Kingdoms, because to me, and this is just my opinion, right, but it's the decision to implement this platform is so counterintuitive to the direction the game should be going that I'm worried about future updates for the game, genuinely. And like, look, I love Rise of Kingdoms. I'm a partnered creator, right? This video is not sponsored, but I'm a partnered creator with Rise of Kingdoms. I've been making Rise of Kingdoms content for years, and this update is legitimately so bad that I'm actually worried about the future of the game for the first time in a while, because any team that arrives at the conclusion that this platform is a good idea is a team that's probably making mistakes in other places, right? They're probably making mistakes when it comes to planning for the future of Rise of Kingdoms. I mean, it is such an obvious mistake in my opinion that my trust in the development team kind of, you know, cracks a little bit. I'm getting worried. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, like how did you get here, right? Like, this is really weird. This is like the opposite of what you should be doing. And honestly, I think that they know that. And how do I know that? Well, I don't know, a vast majority of online games having account buying and selling as a violation of their terms of service. And as a matter of fact, Lilith also has buying and selling accounts as a violation of their terms of service. General Prohibition number 10 states that using our service or Lilith content for any commercial purpose or for the benefit of any third party or in any manner not permitted by these terms is prohibited. Prohibition number 17, use your member profile for personal commercial gain. Okay, that sounds like account buying and selling. And also Prohibition number 21, unsportsmanlike behavior, account sharing, including but not limited to the sharing of username and password for others to log in for you. Now, of course, this platform does not actually share your login information, but the account is effectively shared. The progress was done by one person, and then it is being taken over by another person. So 2 people have shared that account over the course of its history. So even in Rise of Kingdoms' own terms of service, it is a violation. And we have to think about like, okay, well, why would that be the case? Why would it be the case that account buying and selling is a violation of terms of service? Okay, well, the answer is literally everything that I just talked about. Every game developer has arrived at the same conclusions that I've talked about in this video, and yet Rise of Kingdoms is going in the opposite direction and not only not banning this process, but they're offering their own marketplace to do so. And there is actually one segment of gaming that does do this behavior. There's one sort of niche gaming market that does offer real money buying and selling of in-game things, and that is the Web3 and crypto section of gaming. And I don't think I need to be the one to tell you that crypto games in 2025, if you are building a game that is starting to look more like a crypto game in 2025, you're probably going in the wrong direction, because just look at Web3 gaming. I mean, it hasn't taken off yet, and it's really kind of just a joke. People point and laugh at crypto gaming, and that is really the only market and the only sort of niche in gaming that is doing this type of practice, right? And that's what's concerning to me, that Rise of Kingdoms has gone down this route, because it's like all of your peers, all these other companies have outright banned this, and Rise of Kingdoms has gone the other direction. That is, you know, their peers in that direction are crypto games. Yikes, I don't know about that. Now, earlier in the video, I said that this trading platform is a lot worse than it looks at first glance. And just to be very clear, that's my personal opinion, but I'm going to share with you guys why I actually think this is even worse than just the implications for the future of the game. And that has something to do with the verification process for the one trade system. As I pointed out before, you have to consent to Jumio collecting, processing, and sharing your personal information. Okay. And this got me thinking, like, what actually is Jumio? I've never even heard of Jumio before. Jumio is an AI powered identity verification company. So just to be very clear, in order to trade characters in Rise of Kingdoms, you have to send a face scan, a valid government issued document, and all of your personal information to an AI powered third-party identification system and just trust them with that data. Like, let's just really think about this for a second. Okay, your face scan, your driver's license or passport or visa, your address, your phone number, your name, all of that information has to be willingly given to an AI driven identity verification company. So okay, it's bad enough that you're sending all of this compromising data to a third party, but to know that it is going into some AI algorithm is like, what? I can only speak for myself personally, but I would never submit that much personally identifying information just to trade an account on a mobile game. Are you serious? What? Not to mention, Jumio has been named in more than one lawsuit over their ID verification. This is an article that was posted over on biometricupdate.com. It says Jumio named in Biometric Information Privacy Act lawsuit over crypto ID verification. This was in March of 2024. That's not that long ago. Biometric identity verification provider Jumio is in legal hot water again for alleged violations of Illinois' BIPA. Again, that stands for Biometric Information Privacy Act. Okay, this time the plaintiff claims Jumio collected, stored, and used his biometric data without his consent, and therefore unlawfully, when he went through a KYC process in a finance app that used Jumio's identity verification. A class action lawsuit was filed in San Francisco federal court on March 18th. Now, for full transparency, this lawsuit was terminated about 5 weeks later by voluntary dismissal. Okay, so no idea what actually came of the lawsuit, but here's another one. Coinbase info processor Jumio fails to destroy facial scans once account identities are verified, class action claims. Coinbase information processor Jumio faces a proposed class action that alleges the company has violated Illinois law by collecting, storing, and otherwise obtaining users' facial scans. And as far as I can tell, I couldn't find any updates on this lawsuit that was published on February 14th, 2024. Now, let me just be very clear here. I'm not a lawyer. Nothing in this video is legal advice, and I'm not advising Rise of Kingdoms on whether or not they should work with Jumio. And in fact, Jumio, to be very clear, does typically have a pretty pretty good reputation when it comes to data privacy. As far as I can tell, there haven't been any actual data breaches from Jumio specifically. So there is a reliable track record for Jumio, and I can understand why Rise of Kingdoms might choose to partner with them. But I want to be very clear, again, nothing in this video is legal advice. This is purely for your information and education, and you can draw your own conclusions about whether or not this is a company that you want to send all of your personal data to. For me personally, I would say that, you know, data breaches, while Jumio, as far as I can tell, has not had any, they happen. It's happened to PlayStation, it's happened to Target, it's happened to so many different companies. And so for me, knowing how common data breaches are and knowing how much information I would have to send in order to set up an account and to do this this character trading, this is not a platform that I personally would be comfortable participating in, especially knowing all of this super sensitive data is going to be just fed through an AI system. Like, I don't know, I personally am really uncomfortable with that. That's super weird to me. And so I feel like people who are considering using this platform should at least know what they're doing, right? Like, you should at least know that this is what you are participating in when you click these check boxes and you agree and you consent to having this information sent. And so with this education, hopefully you can make the decision for yourself. But all of that to say that I feel like the cons list is really long when it comes to implementing a platform like this, and the only good that comes out of it is that a small 5 to 10% of the player base has a reduced risk of getting scammed when it comes to obtaining a new character in Rise of Kingdoms. It just, the trade-off does not seem worth it at all to me, especially all of the things that we talked about when it comes to compromising the progression, the early game progression systems. It absolutely doesn't make any sense in my opinion. It reminds me of when World of Warcraft implemented the WoW token in classic WoW. The players saw it as an admission that Blizzard was unable to, or unwilling to, I should say, dedicate the resources to solving the gold selling problem effectively. So they took the lazy sort of, if you can't beat them, join them type of thing. This feels exactly like that. It feels like Rise of Kingdoms doesn't know how to solve the account buying and selling problem. And so they kind of just made a marketplace and said, hey, do it through us, I guess. And like, look, if this completely stopped third-party account buying and selling, then at least I could say maybe that's a good thing, but it's not going to. You know it, I know it, everybody knows it. The fee here is 15 to 20%. Everyone's just gonna go to their third-party sellers or marketplaces, and they're just gonna do it for less than that, right? So it's like, I really don't understand the entire concept of this. It seems like something that would only work on paper, and the fact that it's actually made it into the domain of reality is like, how did it get this far, right? And using the WoW token analogy, how effective do you think the WoW token was at combating gold selling? Spoiler alert, it didn't do much. People still use gold sellers. It still runs rampant. It's a huge problem. Botting is still a huge problem in World of Warcraft. Like, it didn't do anything. It really didn't do much of anything other than piss off the players who feel slighted by the WoW token and feel like it made the game pay to win, right? So there's all this negativity that came with it, and it didn't even solve the problem. And in the same vein as that, I feel like this platform is pretty much the same way. I don't think this is going to stop third-party buyers and sellers. I think that really it's just going to brew some negative sentiment. I think that it relies on players submitting very personal data in order to do so. There's a very high fee that the platform charges to do this. You're really going to have a hard time convincing me that the pros outweigh the cons here, because this just feels like to me it feels like there's 15 negatives and maybe 1 or 2 positives, and it's like, I don't know, maybe let's not make decisions with that skewed of a pros and cons list. But you guys can let me know what you think in the comment section below. Maybe I'm the minority here. Maybe you guys actually like this platform. Maybe you like buying and selling accounts in Rise of Kingdoms. Let me know in the comment section below. While you're down there, drop a thumbs up on the video. It really helps out the channel a ton. Consider subscribing if you're down there and clicking the bell to be notified the next time that I upload a Rise of Kingdoms video. And with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Peace.